Good morning. At the start of a holiday week, the president and first family arriving in Hawaii yesterday, spending Christmas and New Year's there. Congress remains in recess until early January. And tomorrow in state capitals around the country, the final step in the 2016 road to the White House. It will take place as electors gather to make it official. Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, but Donald Trump winning the Electoral College vote. And the results will make Mr. Trump our 45th president. It will be affirmed tomorrow, and we'll have live coverage of those sessions beginning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow in Springfield, Illinois, and take you to a number of state capitals. But on this Sunday, we want to ask you about some efforts still underway. The Washington Post is calling it a last-ditch effort to stop Donald Trump with the Electoral College meeting tomorrow. For Republicans, 202-748-8001. If you're a Democrat, 202-748-8000. And for Independents, 202-748-8002. Send us a tweet at C-SPAN WJ. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/C-SPAN. And good Sunday morning to you. Thank you very much for being with us. This is what the headline looks like this morning. Front page of the Washington Post. A last-ditch bid to upend the vote. The push for electors to block Donald Trump. We're going to get your comments on all of this in just a moment, based in part on concerns by some electors who want to know more about any alleged ties between Donald Trump, his campaign, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a letter to the director of the National Intelligence, James Clapper, here's an excerpt of what some of the electors are now asking for. Quote, "The electors are required to know from the intelligence community whether there are ongoing investigations into ties between Donald Trump, his campaign or associates, and Russian government interference in the election, the scope of those investigations and how far those investigations have reached, who was involved in those investigations, and we further require a briefing on all of these investigative findings as these matters directly impact the core factors in our deliberations of whether Mr. Trump is fit to serve as President of the United States." Well, President Obama was asked about this Friday in his news conference. Here's part of what he had to say.
With respect to the electors, I'm not going to wade into that issue because, again, it's the American people's job and now the electors' job to decide my successor. It is not my job to decide my successor. I've provided people with a lot of information about what happened during the course of the election, but more importantly, the candidates themselves, I think, talked about their beliefs and their vision for America. The president-elect, I think, has been very explicit about what he cares about and what he believes in. So it's not in my hands now. It's up to them.
What about long-term, about the Electoral College?
Long-term with respect to the Electoral College, the Electoral College is a vestige. It's a carryover from an earlier vision of how our federal government was going to work that put a lot of premium on states. And it used to be that the Senate was not elected directly. It was through state legislatures. And it's the same type of thinking that gives Wyoming 2 senators and with about 500,000 people, and California with 33 million get the same 2.
The comments of the president in his news conference on Friday before heading to Hawaii. And so what about this effort by many who do not want to see Donald Trump as elected as our 45th president, pushed primarily through the Democrats who feel that they have been wronged in the campaign, with the results showing that Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, but Donald Trump winning the Electoral College vote with more than 300 electoral votes on November the 8th. So your thoughts on all of this, as the Washington Post is calling it a last-ditch effort. This is the headline from Politico.com. The story also on the Electoral College vote, as the electors demanding an intelligence briefing before the vote tomorrow. Let's go to Joshua, Republican line from Amsterdam, Ohio. Good morning. Your take on all of this?
Well, it's not going to work, but what I wanted to say is I believe that the Electoral College, the purpose of it when it was created, I think, was that the states elected the president, and we didn't have technology. So I believe that the states put somebody on horseback, the Electoral College person, and sent them to Washington, D.C. And I think everybody's taking this out of context, and I think a lot of this needs to be updated. But the last-ditch efforts, that's all fake news. I hope C-SPAN doesn't go there with it, but, the rest of these people reporting on it, it's fake news. There's no proof of it. But I think that everybody's taking the context, the purpose of the Electoral College, and they're not thinking of how it was then when all this stuff was. We didn't have technology. Mm-hmm. We barely had trains, at this point. I don't even think they had trains when they,
they didn't have trains in 1787. Hey, Joshua, thanks very much for the call. This is from Carol, who says, it is foolish and in vain to try to stop Trump. Those who loathe Trump will do or try anything to stop him. Get over it. And we're getting your comments on our Facebook page. You can join in on the conversation at facebook.com/cspan. And let's go back to what the language is in the Constitution. It is the 12th Amendment that created the Electoral College vote. It includes the state's entitled allotment of electors equals to the number of the members of its congressional delegation, one for each member of the House, plus the 2 senators. There are, of course, in total 538 electors. A majority of 270 is required to elect the next president, Donald Trump getting 303 electoral votes. Let's go now to Jeffrey, also on the Republican line from Summerville, South Carolina. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I disagree completely. I don't think the Electoral College is a vestige. It's a great way to translate each individual state's impact within the union for size and population. It translates that wonderfully. If we didn't have that and it was entirely population-driven, we would end up with something like the Hunger Games, where we have 3 or 4 capitals controlling how the entire country runs. And as far as the dispute of Hillary Clinton getting more popular vote, you set up the rules before the race is run. If we were going to go with a popular vote, each one of them would have conducted their campaigns differently. You don't do a baseball series and then argue back and forth about who got the most runs, but who won the most games. You set the rules up initially.
Jeffrey, thanks for the call. And this is from Richard. The Founding Fathers, he writes, did not trust the people, hence the Electoral College. And the Washington Post, reporting on Congressman Don Beyer from Northern Virginia, is calling on fellow members of Congress to delay tomorrow's Electoral College vote because of reports of foreign interference in the campaign aimed to help Republican Donald Trump. Recent credible intelligence reports suggesting a concerted effort by a foreign power to interfere in the outcome of the election. Congressman Beyer, who is a liberal Democrat, saying in a statement that was posted on Twitter last week, I believe the electors should be given all the information relevant to this interference before they make their decision and before they cast their votes. On the Democrats' line, Steve is next from Indianapolis. Good morning.
Good morning. I think the Democrats are upset. I know I am, just the way everything worked out with what's going on and all the stuff going on the side with WikiLeaks and the Russian hacks. That's got a lot that factors into it that's got a lot of people upset. I think had it been a normal election, people would be able to accept it a lot better, but that definitely factors into the situation.
Steve from Indianapolis, thanks for the call. The Associated Press reporting on the Electoral College 101. As we said, 538 electors will be meeting tomorrow. The national popular vote simply doesn't matter. Electoral votes are instead awarded based on a state-by-state results, essentially the U.S. holding 50 separate popular votes that determine an Electoral College vote count. And in today's Washington Post, syndicated columnist George Will writes about the Electoral College. He makes 2 points. Let me share with you what he writes. This from the Washington Post this morning. He says those who demand direct popular election of the president should be advised that this is what we have in 51 jurisdictions, the states and the District of Columbia, and the electoral vote system quarantines electoral disputes. Imagine the 1960 election under direct popular election. John F. Kennedy's popular vote margin over Richard M. Nixon was just over 118,000. If all of the 68 million popular votes had been poured into a single national bucket, there would have been a powerful incentive to challenge the results in many of the nation's 170,000 precincts. Also, George Will writes the following. He says the 48 elections since 1824 have produced 18 presidents who received less than 50% of the popular vote. The greatest of them, Abraham Lincoln, received 39.9% back in 1860. So on Monday, when the electors cast their votes in their respective states, actually making Donald Trump the president-elect, remember, do not blame the excellent electoral vote system for the 2016 choice that was the result of other and seriously defective aspects of America's political process. George Will this morning in the Washington Post, his syndicated column, an electoral college system that he calls an excellent system. From Fresno, California, Linda, Democrats line, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I have grave concerns about Donald Trump, and I think, I'm not sure on the Electoral College issue whether that's good or bad, but I think the popular vote speaks for itself. My biggest fear is that in looking at the cabinet choices, I think they're not representative of our population and the overall diversity. And my biggest concern is his rhetoric. There was no discussion of the issues. It was all about things being terrific and wonderful and so forth, which doesn't have any substance to it. And the hacking is definitely an issue, and it should be given major consideration. And what I really have some concerns over is I think Mr. Trump has some form of dementia or Alzheimer's, because the repetitiveness and the so forth that he speaks makes no sense to anybody, and he really didn't tell us what his real true vision of the United States will be, other than just this constant rehashing of strange little words. But I mean, you just can't. No substance, period. And I fear for this country with someone like this. I mean, it's really quite scary. And it's very unfortunate for the United States, and it's so unpresidential. We've had such wonderful presidents in the past who have our best interests at heart, and we need that, and we will miss President Obama so much. And I hope the best for our country.
Linda from Fresno, thank you very much getting up early on this Sunday morning. We appreciate it. Jody has this tweet saying the following: if Donald Trump is denied the presidency, there will be riots not seen in their hatred since the Tulsa riots of 1920. And another comment from this viewer saying the Electoral College should reflect the popular vote, not nullify it. That is an easy fix. We read to you earlier that article from the Washington Post. Here's the actual tweet from Congressman Don Beyer from Northern Virginia, who again is calling on Congress to look into what he is claiming an interference into our elections with the alleged Russian hacking. The president who commented on that during his news conference on Friday, Eric Lipton, by the way, of the New York Times, will be joining us in the final half hour of this morning's Washington Journal. And this story from Politico, the headline, Electors Under Siege. And we talked yesterday with Chris Suprin, one of those electors who was on the Washington Journal yesterday. The story points out from Kyle Cheney that members of the Electoral College will cast their historic votes for the next president of the United States on Monday. In the meantime, they are under siege. The nation's 538 presidential electors have been thrust into the political foreground like never before in American history. In the aftermath of a uniquely polarizing presidential contest, the once anonymous electors are squarely in the spotlight, targeted by death threats, harassing phone calls, and reams of hate mail. One Texas Republican elector says that he has been bombarded with more than 200,000 emails. Let's go to Val joining us from Minneapolis. Good morning, Independent Line. You're next.
Hi, thank you. So when you said that the electors are thinking about doing something, do you mean the whole body, all of the electors are on board?
No, what is happening is there's an effort by some of the electors. They're called the Hamilton Electors. The vast majority are Democrats trying to stop the election of Donald Trump. There are a few, but only a few of the Republican electors who now are threatening not to vote for Donald Trump, but by all accounts not enough that would prevent him from being officially elected as our 45th president.
Okay. Okay. I was curious about that. Thank you.
Sure. And if you're interested, this is a website, the Hamilton Electors. Together we can stop Trump. You can get more information. We talked to one of those Hamilton electors from Colorado last week, so you can get more details as well. But again, tomorrow, beginning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll have live coverage. As you can watch this process unfold, we will take you to a number of state capitals: Springfield, Illinois, Richmond, Virginia, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We'll also travel to Denver, Colorado. We'll be monitoring the events in Austin, Texas. We'll also be streaming it on our website at cspan.org. Bonnie is next. Good morning from Oklahoma, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I just called to say that the Washington C-SPAN is just another hack from just trying to get people riled up.
Why do you say that?
It's a shame you had those people on there like that guy yesterday. And then last week there was some old woman. There was the same thing. And you just keep it going and keep it going. You know that he can't, they can't stop him, even though he loses the electoral. It will go to the House of Representatives, and then he will still be the president. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why people just keep on and keep on and keep on. And the news media and C-SPAN and all the rest of them are just trying to do their job for them.
Well, Bonnie, with all due respect, we're not trying to stop anything. We are simply a reflection of what's happening in this country. There's a debate going on. So you heard from a Democratic elector who says it's time to change the system. You heard from a Republican elector who is against Donald Trump. We're going to show the process tomorrow as it unfolds. And of course, during the campaign, we covered Donald Trump extensively, as we covered Hillary Clinton. So to say that we're a hack job is really offensive.
Going. Why don't you just report the news?
Well, we are reporting the news.
That's not news.
Well, sure, it's news. It absolutely is news.
It's just news that you want.
Well, what are we not reporting on that you want us to talk about? Bonnie, did you hang up? We must have lost the call. If you call back, we'll get you back on. Let's go to Bob in Madison, Wisconsin. Good morning.
Yeah, I see the problem is the Electoral College should be declared unconstitutional, but that would require a court case. The basis would be one person, one vote in the 14th Amendment, because why should a small number of swing states get all the vote and 2/3 of the population be left out of the decision? Essentially, that's the way it is. Why should 80,000 votes be more important than 3 million votes in California? 80,000 from 3 states. That's unrepresentative of the national. And when you leave it in the hands of the states, you have the corruption of the states, the suppression of the vote that's been going on in many of these states, where they knock people off the voters lists based on the same name but a different middle initial from somebody in some other state. This is a very corrupt practice that should be stopped and should be looked into. And when you have a national vote rather than a state-by-state vote, you get rid of the small corruptions, because whatever happens in the one state is not going to determine the entire vote of the entire country. It's never been closer than Kennedy at 300,000 votes compared to 80,000 votes deciding the election under the Electoral College in this system.
Bob, thanks for the call from Madison, Wisconsin. And Jody has this point. Of course, the Republicans like the Electoral College. It has given them a winner with less popular votes twice, in 2000 and 2016. Let me go back to the story at Politico.com, writing about Chris Suprin, who is from Texas. He so far is the only Republican elector to say that he will not vote for Donald Trump. Of course, we need 36 other Republican electors to deny Donald Trump the presidency when they meet tomorrow in state capitals. He joined us yesterday on C-SPAN's Washington Journal. Here's part of the reasoning behind what he intends to do tomorrow in Austin, Texas.
No, we can't delay the vote on December 19th. I believe it's a constitutionally set date, as I understand it. So the vote will take place in state capitals on Monday in 2 days. And for me, that's okay, because again, I wanted this information so I could better understand what may have happened in the election. But I had written my op-ed against voting for Mr. Trump, I think 4 days prior. So my decision was made with other data and with other information that I was concerned about. So this would have been icing on the cake, so to speak, but not necessary.
Chris Seprin, a Republican elector who will not vote for Donald Trump. He joined us yesterday on the Washington Journal. The full interview on our website at cspan.org. Valerie, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Democrats line. A last-ditch effort to stop Donald Trump with the Electoral College tomorrow. Your take on all of this?
Good morning,
Good morning.
And how are you?
We're
Happy
fine,
New
thank
Year and happy holidays. My concern is not that Donald Trump is the president-elect, but that some members of our country felt that with Mr. Trump's credentials as well as lack of credentials, that he reflects the pulse and the personality of our citizenry. We have had previous presidents who denoted certain concerns. President Harding, President Lincoln, who was a manic depressant, President Bush, whose mother said he wasn't the brightest bulb in the lamp. The Electoral College was an extension of the 3/5 of a man Act during slavery, and it also gave the smaller states some kind of the larger states, and just not allowing them to overbear the smaller states. The Electoral College is the way our country has been. Our presidents have been elected over the past centuries, and we either need to change the system or live with the system as it is and make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of tweets from Alton, who says the Electoral College not voting for Donald Trump would send a shockwave through the bond markets. And this view from Susan Flanagan saying, interesting that the Electoral College discussion is here. If Clinton had won, crickets. Well, again, from the jump page of the Washington Post, this headline, pressure is intensifying on electors to block Donald Trump. And from WashingtonPost.com, a last shot bid, thousands urging the Electoral College to block Trump in the vote on Monday. Quote, pressure on members of the Electoral College to select someone other than Donald Trump has grown dramatically and noisily in recent weeks, causing some to waver but yielding little evidence that Donald Trump will fall short when the electors convene in most state capitals Monday to cast their votes. From Rutland, Vermont, on the Independent line, Tom is next. Good morning.
Good morning. I had predicted the outcome of this race prior, but I had it wrong. I thought that the Democrats would get the electoral vote and Trump would get the populist vote. Turned out just the opposite. But we do need this electoral vote because we've got people would be voting for the best quarterback or an athlete or a movie star. Whoever happened to be popular would just be voted in. And the electoral vote hopefully prevents that. The other thing is, the reason the Democrats, I thought, would get the electoral vote was because Obama had been giving all these people driver's licenses, and they have the motor voter thing. When they give you a driver's license, they automatically register you to vote as a Democrat. So they've been trying to load certain areas with the Democrats. And it's working, but it's just not working as fast as they'd like it to, and it really upset the apple cart this time for certain people. We need to keep that electoral vote in place, though, to prevent a popular person from taking the country over.
Tom, thanks for the call from Vermont. Edwin has this tweet: the people need to realize that 47% of the electorate did not vote, may have turned the election around. A follow-up from Carol, who says, the reason I prefer the Electoral College is because it gives all the states a say, not only the largest urban populations. And with regard to our earlier caller, keep riling them up on C-SPAN's Washington Journal. That's why we watch you, the rabble-rousers at C-SPAN. Well, thanks for your tweets. We appreciate them. We'll have more coming up in the next few minutes. This is a story this morning on Senator Al Franken. From comedian to U.S. Senator, now in his second term, Funny or die is the story as Al Franken prepares for the next 4 years of the Trump administration. And by the way, we did a profile interview with Senator Franken. It's part of our video library at cspan.org. Ed from pronounce your name in Connecticut?
Yes,
an
it's
Indian name.
called Pawcatuck.
Pawcatuck,
yes, thank
okay.
you.
Good morning.
Yes, I would like to read a letter to the editor, which I wrote about the Electoral College, which appeared in our local newspaper.
Sure.
Okay. And I wrote, the election of Donald Trump has intensified the movement to elect a president by popular vote. Here are 2 reasons why this is a bad idea. First, if the vote is close, a nationwide recount will be needed, amplifying the constitutional crisis of the 2000 Bush-Gore election by 50-fold. Second, proliferation of third parties would increase the likelihood of the president being elected by low plurality. The mandate to govern as a reflection of the will of the people would be dangerously impacted. In 1968 and 1992, the winners only received 43% of the vote due to third-party candidates. More third-party participation could reduce this plurality significantly. The framers created the Electoral College in order to build consensus in a Republican form of government and to harmonize local and federal interests. From it evolved strong political parties to ensure that the president receive a majority vote, thus avoiding the election to be settled in the House. The alternative is a coalition government with weak political parties. In 1932, such a system in Germany enabled the Nazi Party to gain power with only 37% of the vote. Mm-hmm. So that's my letter, and I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Ed, thanks for the call from Connecticut. And again, it's Electoral College. We've had a couple saying electoral, but it's Electoral College. We'll be dealing with this today and tomorrow, just as an FYI. NBC News also reporting on one of those electors from Hawaii joining the effort to get that intelligence report on Russia's involvement in the election. The story points out that Hawaii's 4 electors have joined others in asking for more information about the alleged Russian hacking of the U.S. political institutions to sway the election before casting their ballots on Monday. In a statement last week, the 4 Democratic electors asking the president for the Central Intelligence Agency report into those cyber attacks. And again, those are Democrat electors. In order for this to change in any way, the Republican electors would have to switch, and right now only one publicly, and that's the individual we had on yesterday from Texas. Let's go to Ken, joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning, and Merry Christmas to everyone. But to show you how hypocritical the Democrats are and the people that are pushing this, if the Republicans, if we had done this and had people try to switch their electoral votes when Obama first got elected, can you imagine the uproar and the names who would have been called? Yeah, and so this is just something sour grapes, and they lost the election, so they're just grasping at straws, and they're looking for anything to try to change the outcome. And the fact is, we should unite behind our new president-elect Trump and just move on forward as a nation. That's one of the things that makes us an exceptional nation, that we're able to have these elections. After the election, come together as a nation, and if they don't like it, then just regroup and try to win the next election. That's what Republicans have done. And if we did this back in 2008, people would have been livid if we were trying to get people to switch their commitment to vote for Obama after he had won those particular states. So I just think it's very hypocritical.
Okay, Ken, thanks for the call. Another viewer saying, can you dump any of the calls as soon as they say electoral instead of electoral? Thanks for the tweet. And this from John. Let's declare the Constitution unconstitutional. Hashtag, you couldn't make it up. Let's go to Rick joining us next from Maryland, Temple Hills. Maryland, good morning. On the Democrats line.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just a few points of interest here for me. I mean, there's so many things I want to say about people who've called in, but to stay on point, my thing is with the fiscal conservative Republicans, who every time they get power, for the past 40 years, the debt increases exponentially. Mm-hmm. Poverty rate, by the time they've left office, poverty rate has increased exponentially. The recessions always occur, every time they've had their way in power. And then you have the 4 points that you could probably use to clean up all the problems we have politically. Quit gerrymandering districts when you have the power. Be more reflective of your diverse areas. Don't just pick and choose the people you want to govern. Go back to like an original drawing of your district so you can actually govern for the whole instead of the people who think like you. Take the money out of campaigning like they just, I mean, the Supreme Court allowing all this cash to be thrown into the electoral process is ridiculous. Term limits for these career politicians who stagnate and just gum up the works because their ideals that they believe in, they can't let go and try to work with anybody. It used to be that you had the pork barrel projects, the pork, the little pet projects in everybody's district, to where things got done. That's been eliminated because nobody can horse trade anymore. So therefore, they've entrenched themselves in their little ideological camps. There's just so many problems that you could fix easily if you just reverse 4 decisions, 4 little nuances in our political system. It would make things so much better. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Wendy is next. Good morning from Rapid City, Michigan. Independent line.
Hello.
Yes, good morning, Wendy.
I would like to point out that the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction on a writ of certiorari to examine whether or not the federal courts stopping the Pennsylvania and Michigan recounts was appropriate and constitutional, and also that there was hacking of both the Republican National Committee and the Democrat National Committee, and one wonders what they did with the Republicans. It would have been useful for them to know who died in the last since the last election, because those votes could be bought with fake credentials, and dead people could, as Donald Trump pointed out, indeed vote in that election.
Wendy from Rapid City, thanks very much for the call. This is the headline from the LA Times in a piece on the Electoral College vote. It's written by Matt Pierce, who writes, American presidential elections are generally orderly affairs. People vote, somebody wins, and life goes on. It's our proud tradition of democratic self-governance, and yet the whole thing is controlled by a cabal of elites who actually pick the nation's commander-in-chief and who theoretically have the power to defy voters and stop Donald Trump from becoming America's president. The headline, a cabal of these elites electing the president. Our founders preferred the Electoral College vote to the alternatives. More details available online at latimes.com. Debbie is joining us, Wilmington, North Carolina, Republican line. Good morning.
Hello, yes, this is Debbie. Y'all need to leave Trump alone. He won, and you know how many electoral votes that put presidents in that we did not like, but we had to put up with? Y'all think you're going to put Hillary in? People voted for Trump. We like Trump, and that is that. Those people that sitting there fooling around is making the people who voted for Trump very upset. Leave him alone. Put our president in. That's who we wanted.
Okay, Debbie from
need to quit whining.
From North Carolina. Thank you for the call. This is a tweet from another viewer saying, Anthony is saying, unite behind our president-elect, just like we did President Barack Obama. Two-faced Republicans. More from the president on the Electoral College vote from Friday's news conference.
So there are some structures in our political system, as envisioned by the founders, that sometimes are going to disadvantage Democrats. But the truth of the matter is that if we have a strong message, if we're speaking to what the American people care about, typically, the popular vote and the Electoral College vote will align. And I guess part of my overall message here as I leave for the holidays is that if we look for one explanation or one silver bullet or one easy fix for our politics, then we're probably going to be disappointed. There are just a lot of factors in what's happened, not just over the last few months, but over the last decade, that has made both politics and governance more challenging. And I think everybody has raised legitimate questions and legitimate concerns. I do hope that we all just take some time, take a breath. This is certainly what I'm going to advise Democrats, to just reflect a little bit more about how can we get to a place where people are focused on working together based on at least some common set of facts. How can we have a conversation about policy that doesn't demonize each other? How can we channel what I think is the basic decency and goodness of the American people so it reflects itself in our politics, as opposed to it being so polarized and so nasty that in some cases you have voters and elected officials who have more confidence and faith in a foreign adversary than they have in their neighbors.
The comments of the president at Friday's news conference. He was asked by a reporter from Politico about the Electoral College vote. By the way, the Outlook section of today's Washington Post looking at the Obama legacy, the personalized presidency, Obama constantly invoking his life story to justify his politics and policies. It only got him so far. That's the piece this morning in the Outlook section of the Washington Post. Vic has this tweet. Republicans have a president-elect that have been brought to you by the Kremlin. How can you live with yourselves? And another tweet from Michael, who says, the Electoral College designed to prevent this sort of emergency because Trump and his deplorable appointments will destroy the world. Share us your thoughts on tomorrow's vote that will take place in capitals around the country, state capitals. Debbie, Gainesville, Florida, Democrats line. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. I haven't talked to you since, I think, 2005 when I lived in Mexico Beach. And for those listening, Mexico Beach is in the United States. It's in Florida, not Mexico, so take a deep breath.
So why so long for you to call back?
Well, I've been calling, but I've been getting Pedro and everybody else. I haven't been getting you.
My lucky
day. But anyway, it's so good to see you. And I don't refer to you as squirrely eyes, so you know I've been listening for a long time. But are you there?
I sure am.
Okay, I just didn't hear your voice. But anyway, just real quickly to answer the president's question, I love President Obama, and he knows the answer to that question. How can we restore public confidence? When I called you in 2003, I said we need to abolish corporate funding of election. We need to have true public financing of elections. That's why people don't trust our government, because we have the best government the donors can buy. And that's why Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump took the attention of the American people, because they had enough of the global rigged trade and the donors funding our campaigns. But about that arrogant caller who called in and said you need to, as soon as someone says electoral rather than electoral, that's why we have this division. I wouldn't even read tweets like that. If someone takes the time to call in, you need to listen to them. But what I wanted to say about the Electoral College, our Democratic Party bosses are our own worst enemies, just like our Congressman, Democratic Tim Ryan, said. When will Democrats stop lecturing to workers who've lost millions? 4 million people have lost their jobs from outsourcing. And our party bosses and our Democrats keep lecturing to them, telling them they just need retraining. That's why we keep losing elections, because we're so darn arrogant. And one last thing is the problem that we have with our popular vote is in these states, we know for a fact that we're letting people who buy the 3-packs, meaning the counterfeit driver's license, Social Security card, and work release, they're automatically, even though they're not, citizens of our country, they're
able to vote, but we won't prosecute them because these corporations want undocumented workers to work for slave wages in our country. So that's what we've got to do, get the true public financing of elections. And if we really want, which that's the other thing I called for, is the popular vote, but the Democrats have to ask for it in between, not when they lose. They don't want the popular vote. They defend the Electoral College until they lose, and that's what makes us look bad. We've got to stop doing that. We're Americans first. We have to get behind our president and move on so we can get a Democratic president next time. Thank you, Steve.
Debbie, thank you for the call from Gainesville, Florida. And a lot of you weighing in on our Facebook page. Here are just a couple of comments. This is from Colleen Anderson, who says, it is time for the sore losers to sit down and shut up. We have elections according to our Constitution. We, the American people, have voted. Donald J. Trump is this country's 45th president. No more riots, lefties. No more death threats. No more Russian lies. It is time that you either stand with our new president or leave. And then there's Jean, who says, the people have spoken. We want Trump. Do your job and vote for Trump. Why should you have the final say? What's the point of voting if you idiots change it? America has voted for Trump. And then finally from Ryan, who says, remember that the right to petition the Electoral College to keep out the unqualified Barack Obama from taking office and doing anything and everything to try to delegitimize him as president-elect? No, me neither. Share your comments on our Facebook page at facebook.com/cspan. Marla is joining us from Upland, California. Democrats line again. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. I just have a couple of comments. Sure. I explained to my 16-year-old why that Hillary really won by popular vote and electoral votes. And she said, I believe, as do most of the kids in high school, that Trump bought this election. Now, if 16-year-olds can see the validity of this, I think we're in a scary place. That's one. Secondly, and most importantly, is that the whole premise that these willfully ignorant people had voted for Trump was based upon his constant rhetoric that he was going to go to Washington, and by God, only he could do it, which was to disrupt the illegitimacy and the horrible, I'm blanking on the word. I'm blanking. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We all have those moments.
It's a matter of trying to break up all the money issues.
And oligarchy?
Yes. And I really and truly think that if these willfully ignorant people would look at who he has put into his cabinet up to this point, they are all the worst of the worst. And I hope that the electoral people that will be voting will see that I wanted to use the word conspiracy. That wasn't the word. That was going on in Washington. I just hope that the electoral people this week will really consider what his reason was for going to run for president was to break up all of this in the parties in Washington. Mm-hmm. And my God, of all the people that he has put in, 2 people in this cabinet from Goldman Sachs, a man that is going to run or is going to be Secretary of State who runs Exxon, and personal friends, very good friends with Putin. I think people really need to look at what he was stating while he was running and what he has done so far. And God help us, because this country will never, ever, ever be the same again once Trump is through with it. Thank you.
Marla, thanks for the call. I'm going to pull up something from Mitt Romney. He wrote an editorial letter to the editor of the Salt Lake Tribune, but let me share with you first. This is from the New York Times Sunday Magazine. The Great Awakening, a look at Google, is the cover story. The Weekly Standard, credibility counts no matter what Obama and his minions say. The piece by James Kirchick. And from National Review, the case for a national productivity strategy trying to get those American jobs in America. And Mylan Burke has this tweet: the electoral stunt should stop. I like Trump's Goldman Sachs globalist, pro-immigration, pro-Wall Street team. Let's go to Johnny from Philadelphia, Mississippi. Good morning, Republican line.
Good morning. My name is Johnny Barnum from Philadelphia, Mississippi, and I want to let people know that without Donald Trump, where would we be? The same 4 more years of Barack Obama, Mr. Obama, and Michelle Obama. They need to go and look at themselves, look at their lives, carry on with their lives. So does Ms. Hillary Clinton. I am trying to understand why the electoral voters would change a vote. We're trying to keep America alive. We're trying to keep America together. We're trying to get jobs back in America. Mr. Trump can do no better than what he's done by appointing the people that he has appointed to his office. And I thank God for Governor Pence to join in with Donald Trump, and the people that have been with Mr. Trump have stood by him.
Johnny from Philadelphia, Mississippi, a Republican caller. Thanks. And to all your calls and comments, one other piece of information again from the Salt Lake City Tribune. Mitt Romney writing a letter to the editor. I was surprised but willing to serve. He says, my political journey was surely not so bizarre as the 2016 campaign. That said, let me offer this personal perspective. I was indeed very critical of Donald Trump during his campaign, but now he has been elected president, and accordingly, if I could have helped shape foreign policy to protect the country, I love, I would have been more than willing to do so. I was more than a little surprised that the president-elect reached out to me to potentially serve as Secretary of State. I see it as a welcome sign that he will be open to alternative views and even to critics. That from Mitt Romney in the Salt Lake Tribune. Coming up in just a couple of minutes.